Want to hear one of the wildest, creepiest fairy tales that you probably weren't read as a child? This is one of my favorite lesser-known fairy tales, the Juniper Tree. It starts out exactly like a lot of other Grimm fairy tales, including Snow White, where there's a woman who wants a child and she can't have one. In this one particularly, she pricks her fingers, she sees the blood in the snow, and she's like, oh, I want a child with those color characteristics. And all this is happening beside a juniper tree. And so she gets pregnant, she has the baby, she dies, and she's like, bury me under the juniper tree. And they do. There's this huge, cool pagan trend in fairy tales of people getting buried underneath trees, and then the trees having the properties of that person, or birds living in that tree having the spirit of the person. And you're going to see a lot of that in this story. So again, like lots of stories, the dad remarries and the stepmother has her own child. Her name is Marlene. They usually don't get specific names in the Grimm stories, but she does. Marlene, only Marlene does. And she hates the son because she wants all of the resources to go to her child. Content warning, there's going to be murder, child murder, and cannibalism. So she decides to murder her stepson one day, and the way she does it is she tells him to reach into a chest of apples, and she slams it down on his head and decapitates him, and his head just falls in with the apples. However, she's got a plan to get away with this, and it involves traumatizing her own daughter. So those of us who are of my generation probably remember the scary stories to read in the dark and the girl who's like decapitated, but she's got her head on by a ribbon. How it traumatized us as children. This is like that. She puts the head back on the son, or the stepson, and she puts a ribbon around it to keep his head on. And the daughter comes home from school or wherever, and she's like, hey, I tried to talk to my brother, and he's got this apple in his hand that the stepmom put there. And she's like, he won't talk to me or give me the apple. And the stepmom's like, well, go hit him in the head if he doesn't talk to you. So she does. She hits him in the head, and of course his head falls off, and now the stepdaughter thinks she killed him. So the mom's like, well, I got you. We're gonna cut him up and put him into a stew, and his dad will never know. And they do, and the dad is into the stew. Like, he won't let anyone else eat it, which is good because Marlene's just quietly crying over here. And he eats all the stew, and he's like, hey, where's my son? And she's like, oh, he went to go visit family. And he's like, cool. And he just devours the stew and eats his own child without meaning to. And so Marlene takes his bones and buries them where? Under the Juniper tree. I found this illustration online. It's really dark and beautiful. So like I mentioned earlier, once this huge injustice has been done and the bones have been buried under the juniper tree, this bird sprouts from it, and it's the spirit of the boy. It goes around town singing to 3 different people this song about what happened to him, Bird Boy. And here's the song. It was my mother who butchered me. It was my father who ate me. My little sister Marlene found all my little bones, bound them in a silken cloth, and laid them under the Juniper tree. Petweet, petweet, or pweet, pweet. What a beautiful bird am I. You know, reading these just now, I feel like they would be perfect Hosier lyrics. Like, he could put that to a haunting melody and I would be down with that song. So the townspeople love the song too, and he sings it once and they're like, sing again. He's like, I'll sing nothing for free twice. And so he gets a gold chain from a goldsmith, he gets red shoes from a cobbler, and then he gets this giant millstone from a miller, and he goes back home. So he starts singing the song like in the backyard, and the stepmom is all freaking out because it's the story of what she did. And the dad goes out and he's like, well, this is interesting. And the bird throws down the gold chain to him and he's like, cool, free gold chain. And so the sister goes outside, he throws down the red shoes to her and she's like, oh, pretty red shoes. So of course the stepmom goes outside to see what she can get, and he drops the millstone on her head and kills her. And then, like all good fairy tales, he poof turns back into a little boy now that justice has been served, and he and his sister and his dad go inside and they're like, hey, we got rid of the murderous, awful stepmother. My favorite genre of books is fairy tale retellings, particularly YA, and I've never seen anyone do this fairy tale, and I kind of get why. It would be dark, but it might also be really cool. My book, Dust Spells, out now, is based on another kind of lesser known fairy tale, The 12 Dancing Princesses, or The Shoes That Were Danced to Pieces. I have a whole other video about that that's pinned. But maybe sometime, I don't know, maybe I'll go the creepy route. Or Hosier, if you happen across this, you should totally write a song based on this story.